Welcome to Elite Broker, the podcast showcasing the leading players and stories of success from Australia's broking industry.
Hello and welcome back to this episode of Elite Broker. I'm your host for today, Annie Kane. We're in a different environment today because I'm actually over in WA for the Better Business Summit and Better Business Awards in Perth. And I thought, while we're over here, what a chance to sit down with one of the finalists for the Better Business Awards, a multi-finalist actually this year, in the form of Michael Killiner from Tusk Finance. Now, I'm here in WA in a whole jazzy new studio and loving it. It's sunny, the birds are cheeping. It's lovely being over here on the Western Coast and getting some sunshine. How are you going, Michael? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me. I feel like a real full circle moment. I listened to so many of your podcasts over the years, and sitting here doing it with you is a privilege. So
that's nice. Firstly, congratulations on being a multi-finalist for the awards, which are actually taking place tomorrow. So as we record this, we don't know what the future holds for you, but we know that you are a finalist in 3 different categories: Best New Office, Best Resi Broker, Best Boutique Non-Franchise Office. So congratulations to Tusk Finance, which is your brokerage here in WA. How does it feel to be a multi-finalist for the awards this year?
It's quite surreal, really. I think when you have a brand and you are living by that brand and really trying to push it out and then get nominated and acknowledged in the industry, I think it's really special. I think you work long nights, you work long days, and sometimes you kind of wonder what it's for. And you certainly don't do it for this, but there's a little bit of excitement when you do get to these stages.
Yeah, but if you think about the things that you were sort of thinking about when you were putting the submissions forward for Best New Office, Best Resi Broker, Best Boutique Non-Franchise Office, what were the things that you were like, this is what I think we're doing really well?
That's a really good question. I feel that there's so much in the industry that everyone's doing really well, and I find it, I'd almost find it impossible to choose winners in a lot of those categories as well.
Oh, it is impossible. It is impossible.
And there's just so many fantastic brokers, there's so many fantastic officers, and I think the collaboration between them is something that is really unique to the industry. So there's a part of me that feels like we're not doing anything that different to a lot of the other brokerages that are out there. I know that we do our best, and that's kind of cliche to say, but for me, that's probably where it lands. I'm really proud of the team component. Yeah, that's like, for me, that's amazing. And then also sitting there with the likes of Adam Donald in the residential broker, Balpreet, like there's some really amazing brokers out there, and so to sit alongside them, bit of imposter syndrome. But I certainly feel quite privileged.
Adam Donald there and Balpreet Bell both have been podcast guests in the past. Maybe I'll try and dig them up and put them in the show notes so you can go back and listen to all the WA brokers that we've done on Elite Broker. But for anyone who's not met you before, Michael, so you've been in the industry for about 7 or 8 years as a broker, but taken a kind of weird route into broking, not the traditional jumping over the fence from the bank into broker. So walk me through how you got started. Like, what was your... Before we get into what you were doing before, but like, what was the turning point where you were like, broking is for me?
I didn't realize what broking really was, to be honest. I was working in real estate, so if we kind of do that sort of side of the story, and my mum was the business owner and is the business owner still, and as part of her succession plan, I was certainly involved in that. And I think there was a part of her that saw that real estate sales wasn't my passion and where I wanted to be long-term. Numbers, but the property industry as well was something special and something I was really interested in. And it was my mum. Mum sat me down and just said, hey, I think you should be a broker. I was kind of, what does that really entail? And it was mum that sort of cut her succession plan for the benefit of me long-term to say, well, this is the path I think you should take. And I jumped at it. So,
Mum knows best, obviously, because look at you now, 7 years later, 8 years later, and still loving it, hopefully. But that was up in Darwin, right? Yeah. So you made the move from Darwin to WA. How did that happen?
Yeah, so my wife's from Perth, and so we were having a great time in Darwin. That's where I'm from originally, and that's where most of my family are from. And we had the decision of, let's go to Perth eventually. Slight miscommunication. I then decided to go straight away, and my wife said, hang on, I thought 3 to 5 years away. So my wife stayed living with mum and dad while I moved to Perth.
Wow.
And so I was here for 12 months in broking here.
Yeah.
didn't know anyone, and it was quite intimidating. But I think that's where you put all your eggs in one basket and try hardest.
Wow. So you started out with Mortgage Choice. So did you just sort of look up different adverts for people looking to hire a broker? Like, how did you actually get into the industry?
Yeah, so I had a family member. So my uncle had a Mortgage Choice franchise that was in Perth. And so as part of that discussion about what was possible, that's the pathway that I went down. And obviously Mortgage Choice has a fantastic name and brand in the industry. And so it felt like a safe option as well.
Yeah. So were you like just doing the processing sort of things to start, or did you kind of do your Cert 4 and start broking immediately?
Cert 4 and diploma straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then it was because I didn't know anyone. I'd learnt so many prospecting habits from real estate. Real estate, it was 100 calls a day, do door knocking 2 hours a day. So there was a lot of that prospecting that was built in. And so got here and made 30 calls a day every day for the first 2 years. And if you made 30 calls a day, I got an appointment out of 30. That was the ratio.
Yeah.
And so
It's not high.
it's not high, but you know that if you do your 30, you get your appointment.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden every day you're then stacking up appointments and so forth. And that's how I kind of cut my teeth into it.
I always think this is so interesting. We do a new broker academy with the advisor, and every year we do 2 streams for that. So one stream is people who are not yet brokers who are thinking about becoming a broker, and the other is people in their first couple of years of broking. And the one thing that I think people who are in the prospective broker stream always ask us is being like, well, how much work is it? Surely it's not that much. And like they get so freaked out by like how much work you have to do to convert enough leads to make a living. And I think for them, and also how long it takes before you get paid, there's the 2 sort of big things that people get worried about and they're always surprised about in broking. And yeah, it takes a lot of trial and error before you actually get enough sort of people through the door that you can start building momentum.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of the fear of failing in that as well, which I embrace myself. But I think even going back to that, a lot of new brokers say, oh, I've got a lot of friends and family that will use me. That runs out pretty quickly. And a lot of your friends and family don't necessarily want to use you straight away because they have an existing broker as well.
Yeah.
So I think new to industry brokers do find that a bit of a challenge, like you would in any sales environment.
Yeah. So you were with Mortgage Choice for about 7 years, and then a couple of years ago decided to go out on your own and start your own brokerage brand, which became Tusk Finance. I'll ask you about the name in just a minute, but before I do, what was the decision to kind of set up your own business and your own brand?
It was definitely taken out of my hands. There was certainly some elements that were happening within the business that were out of my control, and it ended up being a forced decision that was the way that we had to go. I had a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old at the time, so not ideal. There certainly wasn't any planning behind it, and then we found ourselves in that position that, well, we've got to start on our own. And so we found ourselves trying to find a name, work out what to do, all of these things that I was hoping to plan for. It just happened so much sooner than I ever anticipated.
So that was in the end of 2023. How did you come up with the name? Tusk, like an elephant.
Yeah, it was a lot of nights of brainstorming with a few vinos with my wife and my dad. And we were trying to work out, for me, it was really clear. It had to be easy to say, had to be easy to spell, and had to be 4 letters.
Why 4 letters?
Just because it just adds punchiness to it. It's very easy to remember something that has 4 letters. It's 1 syllable. It's very easy to say on the phone. And it also can then be shortened. I found that there was just so many best home loans are us. There was just so much around home loans that I wanted to differentiate myself from that.
Yeah.
And so that was the criteria. But finding the name is so hard.
Yeah, trying to find a finance name that 22,000 people haven't taken yet. Very hard.
Yeah, we spent 3 nights, and it was the very last morning my wife yelled out Tusk. And I love the song by Fleetwood Mac, and it also then featured all the other my non-negotiables in the name, and so it was born.
So there you go. And you decided to move over to MoneyQuest's group. How did you make the decision of which aggregator to go to? Because obviously it's a big decision when you're changing group, and a lot of brokers, I think, hesitate to even consider it because obviously there's a lot of delays and administration that goes in with moving a group. What was your process like? Did you do any dating of other aggregators? Did you line up a load? Did you just kind of pick one and choose them? What was your process for choosing MoneyQuest?
Process was just around gut feel. I've done everything in my life on gut feel and meeting someone and having that feeling that they've got you back. And so I met with Connective, and Matt, that was based here, estate manager, was fantastic, but I certainly felt like I was a sort of small fish in their pond, that I probably wouldn't get the same sort of customer service in that respect. And Mike Russell, who is such a well-known person in the industry, sent me a text and said, let's catch up. He thought over Zoom, but I flew to Melbourne.
All right.
and was walking down Collins Street, walked to MoneyQuest head office and met Mike for the first time, shook his hand, and I just knew at that moment that he was a person that I could see myself following from all of his ethos and ethics and values, and he's also put that into MoneyQuest as a business. And it was just an easy decision from there.
Yeah. And also like a lovely office in that. I've actually been to that office because MoneyQuest once very kindly, I had checked out of my hotel and my flight was delayed by 4 hours going back to Sydney. And I was like, I need to sit somewhere and work. And they were like, come to our office and just use our office here. And they were so lovely. So I just perched up in the corner and like used it. It's a lovely office down there. But totally agree, like such a nice vibe in the MoneyQuest group as well. And obviously, that made your decision, gut feel.
Yeah, it was just gut feel. Honestly, Mike Russell is one of the most impressive individuals I've met in my life. And you just find someone like that and you think, I just need to be around that person. And so it was a pretty easy decision from there.
Yeah.
And so from that moment on, they've had a few changes of the guard, and there's been some fantastic people that have entered the industry within MoneyQuest, and they've all had the same values that I want and need. So they're fantastic.
And so you set up your own brokerage. Is it like a sort of shop front? Like, do you have an office? Or are you all completely like just working from home? Like, how do you actually structure what your business looks like?
Yeah, so we've got a office in Subiaco. For anyone listening interstate, it's fairly central. We did have a small, tiny office, 3x3, and there was 3 of us out of there, and it was just got too small. So we got a much larger space. We've created a room that's just for ideas and thinking, and I've just put heaps of plants in there, and got a video content room, and then we've got another one with AV. So for me, it's really exciting. I love the idea of creating spaces, and we just now need to fill those spaces with more people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're kind of busy getting the office up and running. I mean, it's been a few years now. You're kind of like really pretty ready to grow. So walk me through your kind of numbers. Like, how many loans do you reckon you write a year now as a company?
It's about 320 to 340.
Okay, wow.
For me as an individual.
Yeah.
And so we do have Ed now as a broker. He's a year as of next week as a broker.
Oh.
And so that's been fantastic. I've loved watching his growth. But for me as an individual behind it, it's 320, 340 a year.
So almost one a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yes.
It's got a lot. And how many other people are in the team with you?
So Ed's there. My wife is also in business, and she's doing so much. She does so much across all facets of life, which a lot of mums do as well. And so she's really the key behind everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got my dad, who's in Darwin, who works remotely. And then we've got a number of offshore staff that are just fantastic, that we've really tried to build a culture around virtual staff and the team. And I think we've created that, and hopefully we can then just grow that on the ground here as well.
Yeah. What does your dad do in Darwin?
He's a loan strategist.
Okay.
So he's an amazing person, and I love having him as part of the business and watching him grow within the business. There's nothing like a 61-year-old learning new things, and so I've loved that. It's been challenging, obviously, but also there's no one I would trust more than him other than my wife and mum. So having him in the business has been fantastic. It's been a challenge, but it's also really cool.
Yeah. And is it all resi loans that you're writing at Tusk, or do you do everything?
No, resi loans. I certainly, based on the real estate experience that I had, I've really tried to draw upon that to offer education around buying a property, not necessarily just the loan, but actually the process and how to buy a property and how to get an offer accepted. So the resi's my space, and I'm really big on finding experts in their industry, and I'm not an expert in commercial.
Yeah.
I'd love to be one day, but right now, today's not that day.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll go into how you actually do what you do, plus the sort of things you're doing to improve financial literacy of your clients and the wider world. And we'll get into that just after this. So you mentioned that there's quite a few of you now at Tusk. I don't think you said how many people offshore. So let's say it's 6, 7?
Yeah, we've got six offshore, 3 here. So yeah, there's a team of 10.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. And when you're all kind of focused on resi and you're doing 320 loans on your own anyway, I mean, that's quite a lot of support you'd probably need on your just to get all those loans done. Apart from Dan, are you kind of the predominant broker and he's kind of a broker in training, or are you both doing similar volumes?
No, he was new to industry.
Yeah.
And so he was a loan processor as part of it, and then he's become his own broker in his own right.
Yeah.
And so, I'm doing my own volumes and Ed's just getting into the industry. And so, yeah, it's certainly the business is very much backing me in that sense, and Ed's doing his own thing, which is great.
So walk me through who exactly does what. Let's say I'm a client of yours and I walk into your office in Subiaco and go, hello, I would like a loan, please. What happens next?
Yeah, so I haven't had a walk-in for so long. So I'd freak out a bit.
What are you doing here?
Hang on, what are you doing in our office? Look, discovery call for every new client. So anyone that comes in, it's a 10, 15-minute discovery call. That's just a blanket. And then it's collecting information through both a fact find and file invite in terms of the secure portal.
Yep.
And then it's working through your loan process, what that borrowing capacity looks like, what the lending scenario looks like. I think those two are the key parts. I really try and simplify it. Like when people are trying to buy a property, they want to know the purchase price, they want to know what contribution they need, and then they want to know what the repayments. The rest of it you can kind of explain through the process.
Yeah.
But those key things I focus on. And so as part of that, then you provide that back to them, and I meet them that first time, but talk to them that next time is a meeting, either Zoom or in person.
Yeah.
And then it's going to that next stage.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, I think, at the moment in terms of what the WA market is doing. Recently became not the last state, I think the second to last state to turn on the Help to Buy scheme. We actually talked to you for a story on that where we were like, people using it, what do you think? Like, is it going to be a good thing? Is it going to be a bad thing? Shared equity. Is it taking much traction with your clients at the moment? Are people curious about it? Do they know about Help to Buy?
I haven't seen anyone take it up yet.
Yeah.
It's certainly one of those schemes that people don't know about. A lot of people are trying to work out how the government are helping them. And then there's state-based initiatives and there's federal. And then federally there's multiple ones as well. And so I think people get lost in that. They also don't know the Super Saver scheme as well. So there's a lot of these schemes, and trying to educate people on that is quite challenging because you don't want to overcomplicate something that is actually quite simple.
Do you write any kind of loans with grants or schemes like guarantees from government sources, whether state-based or federal? And if so, what do you see most commonly?
Yeah, so the state-based here, it caps out at 700 now. And so there's not many that I'm writing in that under 700K. Definitely a lot of the guarantee scheme, but 45% of my business is over East anyway. Mm. And so there's much larger caps over East that we can utilize. And so I'd still say there's a number of people we're helping under the scheme, and it's just trying to get them into the market in our current property market, especially in Perth. That is the challenge. Getting them on the scheme now is easy because there's no caps in terms of income. And there's no reservations for anyone. So I'd say there's still a lot of people that are taking that scheme up.
That's interesting that you've got such a high proportion of your clients being over a different side of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Not only because that makes your life a bit harder in terms of actually time zones, but also just marketing and talking to these people. Like, how did you find such a large base not locally? Like, how did you get these clients?
It's a spider web of referrals. It's remarkable. I'm fascinated by it, and you can almost join them all back to the original source. I went to uni in Canberra, and I'm from Darwin, and so you naturally have met more people through that network, and they all moved to Sydney and subsequently all get home loans in Sydney, and I played a lot of rugby as well, so there's a lot of people in Queensland that so it just naturally grows from there. And I'd still love when two people meet and they both talk about you as the broker and they're completely different parts of your life.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating and happens quite regularly.
Does it?
Yeah.
Your clients meet each other?
Yeah. I had one last week and they met. They're in Canberra and they had dinner they met as part of a mutual friend, and they were both talking about their loans, and mine got done by a broker in Perth. And the other guy said, yeah, so did mine. And so my name came up.
Small world, isn't it?
Very small world. Yeah.
And so do you, when it comes to actually finding clients locally then, like, are you still going through like family and friends? Like, how are you kind of generating new business?
It's all referrals. But it's also stacking on social media. So I find that you're building trust through social media. So you certainly gain the referrals from friends and family, but they're then following you on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it might be. You're building up their trust as they like look at your stuff, and then they naturally then reach out from there. So it's almost this stacking of content.
Yeah.
They then come to you afterwards and say, all right, we're ready to go.
Yeah. Now, for anyone listening to this on audio only version, you won't be able to see the jazzy podcast studio that we're in, which actually has branded microphones with TF, Tusk Finance, on it. So obviously you're doing quite a lot of podcasts. And wait, don't tell me. It's something to do with like the backyard, property in the backyard?
Property backyard. Yeah.
So close. So it's kind of, and the image of that as well, I just, like whenever I sort of see your name, I always see this picture of you with your legs in the pool in your like board shorts. It's like the image for podcast. But you do your own podcast. So that is mostly for your clients. Is that for generating new business? Is that what you're doing it for? Like why start your own podcast?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I just firmly believed in it. I do a lot of stuff on gut, and there is fantastic people within our industry like yourself that do a podcast. And naturally, you're meeting new people, and naturally, your network is growing. And so I found that in Perth, there was no one doing it. And I had a really good conversation with Aaron Chrissy David, who's a fantastic person in this industry. And we were going through the nuts and bolts of it. And he said, well, how many brokers are there? 24,000. How many of them have a podcast? There's probably 20, maybe 30 that have a podcast. How many of them have a podcast in Perth? 0. He was like, why wouldn't you take that market? And so naturally, that's where it started. And then it was like, well, what positives are there? And you're meeting new professionals. So you're meeting new real estate agents, you're meeting new accountants, financial planners, and you're cross-collaborating content. And they're sharing your content to their audience and likewise to mine. And so it just becomes symbiotic to what you're both trying to achieve. And I've met some amazing people, like really, really impressive people that I wouldn't have got to meet before. And so some fantastic agents in Perth, like Vivian Yap, for example, who's probably the best agent in Perth, wouldn't catch up with me for a coffee. Naturally, like why would she? Get her on the podcast, and it's
something in it for both of you.
There's something in it for both of us, but also there's this connection you build, like you would find with your podcast. You interview someone, there's a genuine connection. Yeah, and it's really special.
So you're doing that kind of for yourself, really, more than for your clients. But you're also doing a lot of like financial literacy education with your clients as well. Like you were saying there, like having to explain a lot of the time, like what the different schemes are. Are you doing that on socials? Do you do any face-to-face kind of like seminars and things like that?
Yeah, so we did a face-to-face seminar a couple of weeks ago. And so on Thursdays, I do a mini. And so the mini episode is purely lending. So that's the educational piece. Mm-hmm. And so that's the bit that I find gets a lot of traction from questions. And so there was a lot of questions around how parents can help their kids.
Yeah.
And then we did a seminar on that a couple of weeks ago, and it was fantastic. People are so engaged in these things because they know you're willing to explain it to them and they can understand it and they want to hear it from you. But going back to that question around why I do it, the final part is I feel that our kids aren't going to see what we were like at a certain point in time, and getting me on video talking to people about what a home means, I know that my girls will see that in the future and they'll go, oh, that's how hard it was at the time. And also that's the kind of person that he was. And so for me, that's the very underlying fact of doing the podcast.
A legacy footprint.
Yeah. And I've talked to my 6-year-old and she now wants to be on here. So we're going to do one with just myself and my daughter. And it's going to be called Small Talk or something like that. And just listen to the most beautiful human 6-year-olds. They're so inquisitive. And Anyway.
You should ask her how much she thinks a house is. Because it'll be like $20 billion.
Yeah.
Or it'll be like $10. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be $59.
Yeah, it'll be a large number in her head.
It's a few more zeros.
Cute. Well, I look forward to listening to that. And I think the other thing I was going to ask you about was the kind of like doing the face-to-face education sort of seminars. And the part of the reason I'm sort of picking your brain about this is because you actually originally came from events, I think, in Singapore, randomly. What?
Yeah. That is really going back.
How what?
That's definitely LinkedIn. But I did uni in Canberra. I was playing a bit of rugby, moved to Singapore to play rugby.
Oh, okay.
And so in Singapore, it's a very expat community.
Yep.
One of the expats was a managing director of an events firm. And all of a sudden I was there going, what do I do? And they said, come on, let's do these events. And then I was doing events in Singapore for a number of years playing rugby as well. So,
fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Best time. Not the best time of my life, but certainly up there. And that's how that came to be.
Yeah, and it was from LinkedIn. I was LinkedIn stalking you, and I was a bit like, this is a really weird route. You went from events in Singapore to real estate in Darwin to broking in Perth. I was like, what a multinational like career this guy's had. And obviously settled in Perth now and doing quite a lot with your team and building your business. Did you take a long time to actually build up the size of team that you have? Like, did you start with yourself and your wife and then kind of go, now we need some support? Did you start with a team already? How did the
Tusk started with support. I was already writing a certain number of loans a year and I needed support. And that's one of the reasons why that kind of ended up the way it did, because I needed more support and that wasn't being provided. And so we started with 2 support staff straight away.
Right.
My wife wasn't working in the business at the time because our daughter was 6 months, our youngest was 6 months. And so we got someone else and then have gradually built up the team from there. Hired someone to be a post-settlement care really early as well. And so that wasn't something that was being done. I could see a real value in providing post-settlement care to clients. It felt disingenuous to say, we're going to look after you in the long term, settle the loan, and then never talk to them again.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is someone to call in 2 years, 3 years' time, and their interest rate is bonkers. And you're like, well, we could have done something about that.
Yeah.
How can you genuinely sit there and say that? So that was one of the early hires as well, post-settlement.
And was that onshore or offshore?
Offshore.
Yeah. And how did you find the offshore person?
That's been fascinating itself. So Nathan Smith from Birdie Wealth helped me originally with that. So he's got an amazing team offshore, and so he's got great experience in there. So that was where I went to first. You just find people that are doing something better than you and you just learn from them.
It's interesting that you're talking to these brokers who are not in your aggregation group. They're in different, like I think ACD's Connective, Nathan's maybe Connective or AFG. I can't remember now. AFG. Like how are you coming across all these other brokers that don't work in the same state as you, not in the same group as you?
Yeah, when I first started, I listened to your podcast and I used to get the MPA magazine. I used to cut out the top 100 and I'd call or reach out to everyone in that top 100 and I'd say, what are you doing differently?
That's great.
And so for me, learning from people doing something better than you it was always the way to learn. And so that's like what I've found, the more you write, the more you get in terms of, and the more you're willing to share. And so in real estate, it's the same thing. You find the top performers in real estate, they'll share if you're willing to listen and ask questions. And the broking industry is even better than that. And so I reached out to Nathan years ago, probably after one of your first pods with him. He had been at Mortgage Choice. He had left Mortgage Choice. He'd created his own business. I reached out to him straight away. So you sound like a really lovely person. I'd love to find out how you've got to where you are. And they're willing to share. Yeah. ACD is exactly the same. And so many other people in the industry.
Yeah. Oh, it is a lovely industry. I mean, I've had the privilege to talk to a lot of amazing brokers over the years. And yeah, just being like, so lovely how willing people are to share all their advice and support the new entrants coming through as well, the new brokers. You mentioned earlier about, using things like tools to kind of make your job a bit easier when it comes to actually the fact find or the data collection. Do you use any tech or AI or apps to make your job a bit easier?
Loom. I use Loom every half an hour of every day.
For videos?
For everything.
Okay.
Everything. Wow. So from team training to notes post a meeting with a client, then all the way to every time we create a lending scenario and calculation for someone, I'll do a Loom video over the top of that. So this is your loom. This is your borrowing capacity. If you close a credit card here, this is what it does. If you put more here, this is what it does. If you can change it to principal interest, this is what it does. And so I find providing transparency in terms of the numbers. I found so many people asking questions of how you got to that borrowing capacity. And this kind of puts me on notice. They say, hang on, no, my bonus is higher than that. That's great. Let's add that in. This is what happens. If we close HEX, this is what happens. And so I do Loom for every client. And then loan documents. Loan documents are mostly digital. So why wouldn't you create a Loom over the top of them? Sign it here, put your shortfall account in here, put your surplus account in here, print this off, send this, post this, and away you go. So I use Loom from team training to client interactions. And because your face is on there as well, they're getting another version of you that they're going, okay, Michael's telling me how to do this and explaining it.
And also they can rewatch it, which I guess like if you're in a meeting with someone for an hour and you've kind of gone through it all, they kind of leave and go, wait, what was that? Like I completely didn't write it down. I've forgotten already.
Yeah, so I do a Loom after those meetings, especially
okay.
if you've only met one of the partners, because not everyone can meet there. I found it interesting starting that and telling people about it. And as brokers, you're still going, no, they want to sit down with me at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. No, they don't. They want you to provide the information. They can go away at home in the comfort of their home and watch it and regurgitate it that way, then come back to you. They don't want you in their home.
No,
and
they want to be in their PJs.
They want to be in their PJs, maybe having a vino and watching it and understanding and then going, oh, well, what do you think about that? And so I find that it creates more of a conversation and dialogue between me as a broker and them as a client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also mentioned earlier about, some of the great referral partners you've got, like real estate agents and financial planners. How did you set up those relationships? Because I think that's so difficult for people when they first start in this industry, being like, everyone already has a referral partner broker. How do I get mine and make sure that they are using me? How did you do it?
So much trial and error. I was going to home opens, meeting real estate agents. In 2017, the market was so bad, there was no buyers at home opens anyway. So they wanted company, but they already had existing relationships. And so, or they wanted something from me. Yeah. And I've never paid for a referral. So I found that was a bit of a dead end. I used to print out all the private renters in the paper and call all the private renters in the paper because they had a home. It doesn't mean they had a mortgage, and ask them whether they had. So I've done so many quirky things in this space. In terms of then financial planners, just give. They've got clients. They don't necessarily want to refinance or broach that subject, but they want to make sure their rate is competitive. So I'd encourage financial planners. My client's on this. Is this okay? That's fantastic. Great. Oh, that's not that great. We can just reprice within their current bank. Oh, really? Yeah. Here you go. There you go. Done. They got 0.1 off. And then they go back to them and say, hey, we got 0.1 off.
Yeah.
There's no need to refinance that person. And so it was just that give approach. And I still believe that's the way to do it.
Yeah. And at the moment, is that, because obviously rates have started to go up again. And can't wait. And obviously people now are thinking or looking at their rates quite closely and their mortgage repayments and being like, what can I do? Or if they were thinking about buying, maybe accelerating their move in or delaying it, depending on where they are. Are you seeing a lot of people coming to you now being like, what does this mean for my mortgage? Are you proactively reaching out to people to tell them what's happening to their mortgages?
Yeah, I do it through social channels. There was podcasts I did on fixing in November. This is the time we need to look at fixing. And I've tried to continue that message. And so I find a lot of people will reach out because they've been triggered by something I've said. Yeah. So that whether that's Instagram, whether that's just an email that I've said, or whether that's the channel itself. And so if you're just prompting people to think about something they weren't thinking about already, and then as soon as they do, it's like, okay, this is what I would do. Yeah. And so I find that, people don't want to be thinking about their home loan all the time, but they also don't want to be worried about the RBA meeting every time they meet as well. And so trying to balance that with someone, providing them information and also taking the control away from them as well.
Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of people fixing now?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it comes down to what they're comfortable with. I was obviously doing it when we had 13 rate rises in a row. That was horrific. I remember that clearly. I remember how scary it was for buyers and borrowers. And so trying to get ahead of that curve and say, well, in 12 months' time, if you fix today, you're not going to regret that in 12 months. Even if rates don't go up as they say they're going to, you've just removed that stress from your life. Whether you want to or not, that's up to you. But I promise you, if you remove that risk, then you're probably going to be in a better position just mentally. Obviously, there's restrictions around how much extra and offsets and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But, you're just going into all the detail.
Yeah. We're going to take a break here, but when we come back, I would like to talk to you about what's next for Tusk Finance, what you have on the horizon, and what advice you'd give to other brokers just starting out on their journey. And we'll get into it just after this. So, Michael, you were saying there about how you kind of, got your team together and you're looking at doing different things. What do you want to achieve in 2026? Like, do you have like a kind of vision board of like, this is what my year is going to be? You're kind of a business plan case study for what you want 2026 to look like for you?
I wish I did.
Yeah, you will now.
I don't. I'm so caught up in the day-to-day, and that's not where I should be or want to be, but that's just the position I'm in at the moment. I would love to get to sort of client support or credit analyst roles behind us that are onshore. I would love that. And I guess the ability of being up for awards, you can kind of say, come and join us. And so that's what it looks like. You kind of get in this world of, do you grow and get a lot of brokers, or do you say, hang on, we're doing something right here. Let's just build more support behind me now. And so that's what we'll try and target over the next little while.
Yeah.
Hopefully go to CBA, get some credit assessors, come join us, and away we go.
There are a lot of bankers moving over to, I think like last week in Adelaide, there were so many bankers that had just become brokers. I was a bit like, I think about 4 of them I met. I was a bit like, whoa. So yeah, I think you might well be able to scoop them up. And so you're looking at growing the team out still further, onshore ideally. Is there anything else that you want to achieve this year or maybe in the near future, next couple of years?
Yeah, I want to be able to go on a holiday for 4 weeks and not have my phone.
Yeah.
That I find my kids are so young, and we're getting into this really beautiful stage of them wanting to be with us and thinking we're cool, which that won't last forever. And I want to embrace that. And so I feel that the business will work better without me being there. And I feel that we need to embrace their age, embrace the business, and say, let's get some support staff onshore to help with that. And so for me, that would be it. Also, just spending some more one-on-one time with my wife that isn't business related would be fantastic. I know the season we're in is helter-skelter, but that's for me the goals. The numbers take care of themselves. I'm very much cause and effect. You produce all of this work, you'll get this outcome. I know that will happen, but the family side of it's so important to me. So trying to carve that out has been a challenge, and it's something that I continue to work on.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge across the board for so many people. Like you spend so long when you're first starting just building the book, then your book's doing really well, then you're spending loads of time just servicing the book, and then you're going back into growth again, and you're like, oh, when do I ever get a break? So yeah, it's a common problem, I think, people not having any holidays, but it is obviously so important to look after your own well-being, make sure you're not burning out. Do you do anything particular to unwind and de-stress if you've had a tough day?
I'd love to say that I do, but I kind of just roll into bedtime, dad mode, husband mode, and then working again. And so that's the monotonous nature of my week. But I'm also very comfortable with that. For me, I can just see the bigger picture. And so the fact that I get to go to my daughter's drop off, and I get to be there before the sun goes down and have a swim with them and be a dad. And then I work until last week was 2, 3 a.m. But that for me is fine because I've been the dad. They don't know that. Obviously, we need to carve out the relationship with my wife as well because she is part of the business. But for me, I don't really have anything. I do run a bit, and I started a run group called Running with Mates, and we would go to a pub in Perth, we'd run 5Ks, come back and share a drink, whatever that might be together. So that's definitely there. But at the moment, it's very much just trying to push the business in the right direction.
I thought you were going to say rugby.
Yeah, I did. It was there. When my daughters came along, that kind of fell to the wayside, and I just the priorities is just the naturally where it is, and unfortunately rugby's just not there right now.
Yeah.
It will be one day. The season will change and it will be back. But for now, it's just not there.
When you think about then your career as a broker so far, so if you say like sort of 7-8 years you've been broking, what has been the biggest highlights for you?
Starting Tusk. Yeah, and watching people talk about Tusk. It's amazing. I feel really proud of the fact, and this is kind of where it goes back to the name, it's not Tusk Finance. People talk about it as just Tusk. And when you are known for just that as the name, I feel like you're already getting name in the business, in the industry and property market in general. So I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of the podcast with that as well. And so that's grown exponentially, and it's been uncomfortable and all those sort of things. But I think the business that we're growing with my wife, Jemima, that's so special. And so that for me is the highlight, without a doubt. Like that's up there, and it's something that's ours, and we're trying to do our best we can, and at the moment that's okay.
So to flip it on its head, what has been the worst part of the last 8 years?
Definitely the movement away from mortgage choice. That was the worst experience of my life, and it had lasting ramifications. And that's something that unfortunately happened with the way that it did, and that's absolutely the worst thing. And it was a really awful time, and it took me a long time to get through it. And that's why someone like Mike Russell was so important, because I desperately needed someone there that was going to help us personally and professionally as well. And so that was by far the worst. It was clearly the worst time of my life, really. And so I'm so pleased we got through it.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much that people talk around that success only comes after really tough times. And that was certainly what's happened to us.
Yeah.
And we've just built something that I truly believe in: customer support, looking after people long term. And that wouldn't have happened if we didn't go through that tough time.
Yeah. And when you think about the industry more broadly as well, like I'm always curious to kind of say to brokers, like, is there anything that you think is missing? Like, is there any like product that you think would be amazing to have? Like, if you could if you were a lender, like, and create your own products that you think people aren't getting, what would you create?
It's a really good question. I feel that there's a product for everyone. I truly do. I think if we're looking at just lending in itself, probably more support around our essential services, like our nurses, our teachers, our midwives, people that are in underpaid roles, generally speaking. I feel that we probably don't support them enough. We certainly support the lawyers and the doctors and the surgeons and anaesthetists, but I don't feel we support them enough. And it's very much pigeonholed by one or two lenders.
Yeah.
And for me, that's probably one thing. I think someone to do a LMI waiver for mortgage brokers would be fantastic. I feel that
That's a good one.
We know the industry so well, and I'm sure that if you got a broker to write their own loan with you as the bank, what better way to do that? What better way for them to promote the bank as well? So for me, that's one of them. I don't know about any other lending product. I feel that there's just a space for everyone, and if there isn't, someone just fills that void.
Yeah.
And so I feel that there's always so much movement.
Is there anything in the industry aside from lending then that you think could be improved that could make broking better?
Yeah, the process from collecting documents and information to submitting an application. There's no need for all of the bits in between. I understand why they're there. I understand an aggregator's there for its credit license, and we need that. But to get from quickly, for example, document collection through to quickly, all the way through to submission, that should be really straightforward, and it's not. It takes a lot of manpower, it takes a lot of staff time, and I feel that this industry, that will change in the next 6 to 12 months, categorically, and I don't know how it will. AI will definitely play a part of that, and so will the guys from Quickly. Getting documents in here, through to Quickly, calculations done, through the aggregator software, through to AOL, and it doesn't have human error in there, all of a sudden you're removing staff, you're removing time, and it's a really quick, seamless process.
Yeah.
That will happen.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting, like seeing all that's going on in the industry at the moment. I mean, the sort of big one that everyone was talking about was open banking and being like that was going to change things. And it still really hasn't changed things in the way that people want it to, at least in the mortgage process yet. Like, you know, we can use the data, but it's not really being fed into the application process as seamlessly as people would like. But I think that's like really interesting seeing like, how the industry's evolved, because it has evolved so quickly. Even the last 10 years since I've been here, it's really professionalized, seeing so many great players coming up through the ranks and seeing a real change in how things work. So I think even looking at the next 10 years, I mean, it'll probably be completely different looking at the broking industry.
Yeah, I think it will shrink. I think it's probably at its maximum.
Do you mean with number of brokers or market share?
Market share won't shrink. Market share will grow. Broking numbers will shrink. I think people will come into the industry finding that how hard it actually is. You're dealing with some really high emotions. You're dealing with some really big purchases for clients. And I feel if your industry and product and policy knowledge isn't there, then you're going to struggle to actually work out how to make this happen. And I feel that there's a lot of people that have come in that will go, hang on, I get paid so much later than I realize.
Yeah.
I then get clawed some of that back in some cases. If there's net of offset, I only get paid a portion of it. And I've got to get it by and have a team to help me write these loans because I don't have enough time to do everything else. And so I feel that, that the industry numbers will shrink, but the volumes will grow.
Yeah.
And so it's people filling that void of how do we make that work is going to be fascinating.
So if you think about the people who are just starting their journey now, the new entrants, maybe listen to this podcast, trying to pick your brain about, what you've been doing and get some inspiration from you, what advice would you give them?
It takes 2 years. It takes two years to get any traction. And it's the same as anything, fitness, health, broking, business. It's a minimum of 2 years. And so my mum had a really good philosophy of just put your head down for 2 years and then come up after 2 years and look back and go, wow, look, how did we get here? And so my advice would be 2 years and then come up for breath and just do all of the actions you need to in those 2 years that will lead to a better outcome. And so it's that cause and effect. And so mine is just come up after 2 years. The other is you have to be on your phone in terms of video content. And you don't need to post it, but you get so much better at explaining something that's relatively complex on your phone as a video. And if anyone's out there listening and they go, oh, well, I'm too scared to post it. Well, firstly, if you post it, it doesn't do well, no one will see it. And secondly, don't post it. Just get better at delivering a message about bridging finance, about guarantors, fixed rates, variable, whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is, it's just all practice. And my business in the sense of loans changed dramatically when I did that. The ability to explain something that's complex to someone that just wants to learn something simple, that can only be done by practice and video. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great advice, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us on the Elite Growth podcast.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's kind of surreal talking to you through this, so thanks for having me.
I should ask you actually, and I haven't asked this previously, but is there anything you think I should be asking people on the podcast? Is there anything you want to know from other brokers when you're listening to the podcast?
Wow. That's hot seat. That's a real hot seat question.
Have a little think about it.
I've probably the true emotional input that someone has into their business or the loans or their clients. I feel that we kind of skim over that a little bit, and we pretend that we're all doing okay. And I know there's the wellness behind a lot of this and having the question, but I reckon talking to someone about how they're actually feeling through this journey is possibly something that we should open up at. And because I feel that, I certainly will be happy to share those sort of things. And I think anyone listening that hears and says, well, this person's writing this amount of volume, that's what I want to do. But they don't realize then the sacrifices that you have for that. And so I'm really big on not complaining about the problems we've got because I wanted that. Yeah. But I didn't realize how difficult that would be on me as a person. And probably one question that some people would open up at, some people wouldn't, but how they feel going through this journey, because it's challenging. And if anyone out there is listening and they kind of go, oh, I feel that, then that's good because we all do.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of us aren't willing to share that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. If you've got any questions for me or for Michael, then do feel free to reach out. You can reach me at editor@theadvisor.com.au, and of course, Michael Killiner at Tusk Finance, if you want to find out more about what he's doing. And we have not millions, but lots of podcasts on the Advisor Podcast Network channel. If you haven't caught them through before, we've got Elite Broker, New Broker, In Focus, What's Making Headlines, Women in Finance, and Mortgage and Finance Leader. But the most frequent ones probably you already know: Elite Broker, New Broker, and In Focus, What's Making Headlines. And there's so much in there for you to unpack, and we'd love to hear your feedback as well. Leave us a review. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see. We're all ears, and we'll catch you next time for another episode on the Advisor Podcast Network.